What's one tip that you'd give a client right now in order to get to the next step in the interview process?
If a business is bigger than 100 employees, they're using an ATS system.
What's kind of the time frame from the time we kind of do this assessment to figure out who I am, what I want to do, where I want to go, to employment? What are you seeing?
So typically it takes about 3 months, and it really depends on how aggressive the individual is. I've seen somebody accomplish it within a month. My coaching philosophy is really getting to know yourself, like doing that self audit and getting to know who is Jamila, who is Dr. Jaime, like who are we as people.
What are some of the best practices around setting up the success journey? Welcome back to the 5-Minute Career Hack Podcast. I'm your host for today, Jamila Brown, and I have another world-renowned career coach, Dr. Jaime Raygoza. And he's joining us from Southern California, where the weather is always better. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, Jaime?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on, Jamila.
Awesome. Let's get into it. My first burning, pressing question honestly comes from some of my clients, as well as some of our viewers that consistently either comment or sending us emails or connecting with us on LinkedIn. What are some of the biggest problems most job seekers are facing right now?
So that's a heavy question, but one of the most ones is they're not getting responses from these employers. And a lot of that comes from either oversaturated market, a lot of people are applying for jobs right now, but also not knowing how to submit a proper resume. One of the tips that I tell all my clients is that if you don't even include your zip code, a lot of the ATS systems will reject it. So if by just including your zip code on your resume, you have a more likely chance of actually getting seen by a recruiter. But it's just knowing how to sell yourself, creating a right resume, creating an ATS resume that is well, and also knowing how to network and seeing the difference between an oversaturated job that has been applied by many and the ones that are not being well marketed.
And so, if you could just say one thing that our viewers could just go execute right now and change the game. It may not land them the job tomorrow, but propel them forward. What would be, if you could narrow it down to just one thing that if you could tell the absolute world to do right now, go do this and it's going to make the biggest impact for you?
Making sure that your resume is ATS friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, I 200% agree. If you're applying, and let's just assume this is outside of a warm relationship, nurtured kind of situation where you're applying or getting promoted within, if you're applying cold, I 100% agree. You're wasting your time if it's not ATS friendly.
Hmm.
ATS approved, as we like to say, so that it gets you past. Otherwise, you're filling out applications, spending time, and it's absolutely pointless. It's a colossal waste of time. So 100% agree with you. Another question I have for you: what's the first step to figuring out or navigating through some of these things from a resume standpoint that you talked about, the ATS system?
So, one, making sure that the format is correct. So, a lot of people like to make it very fancy. I see people with their pictures and they add these columns and all of these nice things that aesthetically, when one looks at it, are like, oh, this is a pretty resume. But once again, it is not going to be ATS approved. So, making sure it reads from left to right, try to avoid columns and just have one single column with everything written down that way.
Yeah, that's super important because I'm a graphic designer. I do that. It's another business. I don't promote it a ton, but I do a lot of work there. And so anyone that comes to us to get their resume done, it's the same thing. They send us their current resume, and I'm just like, whoa, right? It wouldn't even format well in a PDF, let alone Word. So the upload is going to be tough for a system to scan and get that information out left to right in sequential order. And a lot of the templates that are being shared, whether that's Microsoft Word, Canva, they're set up in columns and not text that reads left to right.
Hmm.
So there are some dangers there. Not anything that you can't overcome, but you have to be aware that the format is in some form of a column chart setting versus just text left to right. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and the thing is to remember that what we were taught back in the 1990s, early 2000s no longer applies today. A lot of people back then used to do the walk up, give your resume, and a person would read it. And that's why we want to make it look nice, we want to make it stand out. But now, half of the time, an ATS system is reading it. They're using AI bots now to scan your resumes before it actually gets to a person. So you're at a disadvantage if you're not making it ATS friendly so that the bot can actually recognize what you're trying to put in there.
So one of the things that when you mentioned you used to walk up and hand someone the resume, you also used to apply in person too. So those were two touch points sometimes, right? When you go to apply for a job, you would physically go to that location. That's a touch point that helps you to get to know and make a first impression. You don't get that anymore. So in addition to making sure this resume can get past it, it is also a first impression that you're frankly not getting face to face anymore. And I think that's a really good call out that things have changed over the last 15, 20 years.
Oh yeah, especially if you're trying to get a big corporate job, it's really difficult. Well, they get so many resumes, so they use all these different tools to assist them to be more productive. If you're applying to a small business, then that might be a little bit more of the old way where you actually submit a resume and a person's viewing it. But if a business is bigger than 100 employees, they're using an ATS system.
Absolutely, no doubt. And honestly, to some degree you want them to do that, right? So that they can actually spend more time during the interview process and being selecting the candidate for the role, spend more time there versus going through 250 plus resumes, right? And not taking the time that they would if they had a bot taking care of some of that work on the front side. So just a little
Yeah.
work that our clients need to do, our viewers, our listeners need to do on the front side to make sure that it's ATS friendly. You mentioned the zip code being one thing, right? What are maybe two other tips that you can give outside of format around their resume that helps to make it ATS friendly?
Yeah. So trying to use not over uh, artsy font. So Calibri, Arial, Times New Roman, those are really good ATS friendly fonts to be using. Paying attention to the formatting as well. So try to avoid as much spacing as possible. Some people add like 6 or 7 spaces in between jobs. So just try to keep it clean, concise, make sure it's left and right. And going along with the zip code, you don't have to put your full address. Confidentiality is important. So putting the city, the state, and the zip code is enough.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I've been suggesting that to people because I think that part is super important as well. And the same thing with your roles. You don't have to, put the exact address for each role, but if you choose to, you can put the state, city, or what have you. Totally up to you. So when you're thinking about it, as we kind of go down this rabbit hole a little bit, because while I have you, I want to make sure I give a unique perspective, right? Because we have ours, and I know other career coaches have certain things that they really focus on, and we're all about no fluff, all action. We want to get people in the interview seat as quickly as possible. So let's say we're past the ATS system, right? The resume gets past the ATS system, and now they're in the hands of the recruiter or the hiring manager. What's one tip right when they get that phone screen call, right? Because they've been selected for that kind of first interview screening. What's one tip that you'd give a client right now in order to get to the next step in the interview process?
You should pull out your success journal, and if you don't have one, create one now. Write all of your main stats that you're going to be saying during that phone interview or that phone screening that really highlights what did you do in your job. And I'm not talking about picking up the phone, answering emails. Like, what did you accomplish there? Give me some hardcore numbers. I increased hiring by 10%. I developed a DEI program. What did you do? What is something that you did above and beyond? And I get this all the time. I didn't do much. I just did my job. No, I can guarantee you did something that was above what you were supposed to, because those that little section of your job description that says and other tasks as needed, we do those every single day, whether you realize it or not.
And beyond, right? You're probably
Yeah.
doing it beyond that job description, beyond those tasks. There's so much that goes undone, and you're right. A success journal, we call them brag notes. I call them. I have a folder I call PB, which is basically just personal business that I used to keep when I was in corporate America. And any email that I got from someone thanking me for something or appreciating me for something, I would file that away. Not just to be, all braggadocious, but it would jog my memory around why they were thanking me. and know that that was valuable, right? Without me having to dig. And so I use that for self evaluations. I use that for my resume updates, used it in interviews to build out my stories that I was going to tell about my career. So I think that's an incredible, and I love Success Journal. So, how do you tell your clients to set that up? What are some of the best practices around setting up the Success Journal?
I would say always have like a date, if possible. Ideally, would be at the end of the day, write down like what did you accomplish that day. If that seems a little bit too intense for you, then at the end of the week. And what the way I format it is the rose and the thorn of the week. So what was the thing that you're most proud of that week, and what is one thing that you need to improve for the following week? And then follow up in the next week's entry, like did I create that thorn into a rose? If not, like okay, what can I keep doing to do that self improvement? If you're having trouble really recollecting, have a little interview with one of your like closest colleagues at work and ask them, what have I accomplished while I've been here? What are some things that you're proud of the work that I do? And you'll be surprised at how many things that they will say that you didn't even realize were important to you.
Yeah, good call out. And what are some recommendations on how to keep this? Is written journal, like a notebook, electronic? What are some best practices that you've seen from your clients?
It really depends on the way that you function and what works for you. I've seen clients do it in a journal, like an actual journal, and then they'll write daily entries. I've seen clients do voice memos where it automatically transcribes. I know if you have a Mac on your notes, you can just have it transcribe for you. I have people that just do it on a Word doc, wherever it seems easy and accessible for you. But that's the key; it has to be accessible. So if you have that a physical journal, keep it in your bag. Keep it with you at all times. So in case somebody says, good job for doing X, Y, and Z, and you're like, oh, let me write that down.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that, and I think when it the new kind of word that everybody builds our technology around to serve us, right, to sell to us, is friction. Right? Everything is about reducing the friction to get you to use it, to get you to consume more, to get you to do more, buy more, whatever it might be. How do I reduce the friction? So it's no different for the individual. Make it so to where you can duplicate that process consistently, daily, weekly, quarterly, monthly, but definitely do it. So I'd love to dig into at this point a little bit about your coaching business and the things that you're focused on when you're coaching clients, and just give the audience a little behind the scenes around your coaching philosophy and what you're doing in your coaching business.
Yeah. So my coaching philosophy is really getting to know yourself, like doing that self audit and getting to know who is Jamila, who is Dr. Jaime, like who are we as people. That way we know our likes, our dislikes, our strengths, our weaknesses, and we know how can we use professional development to get us to the next level. Are we even happy where we're at, or are we settling because this is where we think we ought to be based on our skill set? And life is so short. There's no reason for us to be at a place where we're not happy and feeling fulfilled. Let's use our talents. Let's use my philosophy, unleash that little unicorn inside you and really utilize your talents for the best so you can contribute to society and you can feel the value, the pride of doing what you're doing.
Okay, so I love that. I think knowing self is one of the key functions, and then knowing why what your purpose is, even if that's evolutionary and or is multifaceted. I think that's super important, and I think it also helps to reduce burnout. It increases career satisfaction. You'll probably enjoy your work more. That's a whole other episode. However, I'd love to get into like some of the steps that you walk individuals through to kind of help them to figure out who they are, what they should be doing if they don't have a job or they're pivoting in their career.
So I do a satisfaction survey of like where they're at in their life. So it's like a very intense personalized like assessment where they get to really ask questions of the way that they stand, the way that they sit, to what are their likes, their dislikes, their current job role, their tasks, what are they doing, what are they not good at. And then from there we align with what they're like their current job and seeing if there's satisfaction there. If they want to stay at their job but transition into a different position, or do they want to transition into a whole nother industry? From that point on, I use a little bit of like the five strengths assessment and a couple of other like It's the I don't remember the specific assessment, but it's another type of assessment where it really tests out what are your high skills, whether you're more of a coach, you're more of an empathetic listener, are you more of a leader, and seeing if those match the jobs that they want. And if they really, most of the clients that come to me, they know where they want to go. They have at least an idea. So then we kind of go use all of these assessments, what they know about themselves, and then we see what companies match those values, what companies will match where they want to go. And then we go from resume writing, cover letter, LinkedIn optimization, and all of the little knickknacks to make sure that they get the next job that they want.
With that being said, you're starting off with an assessment, kind of an inventory of who I am, where I am, and potentially gaining some insight to where I'm going. Now that I've got that, I'm your client for today. Now, what's the next step for me? What's the next step that I've, figured this out, or now I'm 100% sure? Even if I knew before, now I'm firm on this is what I want to do. And maybe it's not in the same industry, or maybe it is. What do I do next?
We customize and tailor your resume and cover letter to match the industry or the career that you want to do next. So we add statistics, we add numbers, we reformat it so that it is ATS friendly. And then we also take a look at your LinkedIn and start optimizing it by the summary page, adding like more details, accomplishments in there. And from that point on, we start applying.
Yeah. And what would you say is the time frame? I'm always interested when talking to other coaches, kind of the average time frame. I know every situation is totally different, especially when you bring in geographical preferences, but what's kind of the time frame from the time we kind of do this assessment to figure out who I am, what I want to do, where I want to go, to employment? What are you seeing?
So typically it takes about 3 months, and it really depends on how aggressive the individual is. I've seen somebody accomplish it within a month, and I've seen like somebody accomplish it up to 6 months, but the average is 3 months. And it really is how much effort are you going to put, how much dedication are you going to put, and what is your turnaround. I noticed that it takes usually the writing part is what gets people. They're like, the resume has to be perfect. And I was like, that's what we're here for. Let's workshop it together. So it really is, I would say the sweet spot is 3 months.
Yeah, that's about right. And I'll tell you, if there's some things to overcome for anyone listening, fear. I'm gonna pivot, but I'm a little nervous and I'm a little scared. Just actually putting in applications once you have your LinkedIn and your resume together can sometimes be a little daunting, which is ultimately why you want a coach, someone to kind of walk side by side with you. Stepping into the gym if you have never been in there. 10 years, maybe 30 pounds overweight can be a little daunting. But if you're going to meet a coach, a trainer, it's a lot easier to get over that hurdle and get into a routine. And to me, where I find that it can sometimes take longer is when you're overcoming some of those mental and psychological hurdles to getting the person to call out those successes in their career so we can really quantify those things on your resume. And then ultimately saying, okay, well, this is the job. We figured that out. These are the types of roles you're looking for, but mentally they're not ready to take that step. It can actually end up taking a couple months longer, is what I see.
Yeah, definitely. And even after they land the interview, it's getting that confidence to be able to say everything that's on the resume, that on the cover letter, and even more. I
Yeah.
People start to get that they get so nervous that they forget everything.
Yeah.
So that's where like we do mock interviews and we practice and really get you to get used to talking about yourself.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And that practice, that rehearsing, is you don't just show up as if you've done this every day throughout your career. And for some mid-career professionals that may have been on the road for 10 years, you may have not interviewed in over a decade. And that's real. And that means you're out of practice. And that's okay. We can get you back into practice, but you're going to have to practice. You're not just going to show up if you've not been exercising this mental and verbal muscle, if you will, on a consistent basis. And I think just knowing that sometimes is a good thing to know that, hey, I don't show up ready for this if I don't do it every day. Right.
Exactly. And there's a lot of little psychological tips that I usually give to my clients, whether it's having a glass of water or something in case you start like mumbling or tripling up. Just like take a pause, take a sip, relax, answer the question.
Right.
Little
And
things to
that's
help
perfect.
psychologically.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. And taking a deep breath. And sometimes I think it's an actual tactic in an interview to pause and reflect on the question that they're asking you and not be so canned and quick to response. I think those extra few seconds to be very selective and thoughtful about your answer lets the interviewer know that you're taking it seriously and that you're actually doing your absolute best to answer their question to the best of your ability versus just I've got these automatic answers. Although we're going to have automatic answers, let's be clear.
Oh yeah.
But you just want to frame it up to where it doesn't feel so robotic. And I think those pauses, whether it's for a sip of water when you get tripped up, or just taking a couple deep breaths, taking a note or two around the question, or asking for some clarity around the question, that shows engagement. And I think sometimes people fear the pause in the room, and that pause is perfectly normal. It's a normal part of life. It's a normal part of conversation, and it's definitely a normal part of interviewing if you're human. But not if you're not human, then you know what? Log off. Just step away from this podcast. But if you're human, it's natural. So don't be afraid of that.
Yeah, and then the likelihood of you, they already want, they know that you're qualified if they brought you in for the interview. They're not testing to see if you're like lying at that point. What they want to see, are you going to be a good person that they can work with?
Yeah, that's it.
So show them your personality, show them who you are.
That's exactly it. They want to know that it's like we're going to vibe together in this space where we spend more time with each other than we do with our families. That's what they really want to know, truly. I know when I was in this position of hiring thousands, that's ultimately, I was looking for people to offset my skills on my team. And I was also looking for people that I would be comfortable with and enjoy being around for 10, 12 hours a day. That was important to me. And when you have that, when you're in the position of the hiring manager, that's what they're looking for. Nobody wants to be at work with someone they're like, I really don't like hanging with it. This person is too much, right? Nobody wants to deal with that. So it's important that you allow some of that personality to come through. And I love that point. So as we always like to end every podcast, we always ask our guests to share their final 5 words with the audience. You left a great nugget around getting your ATS resume ready, like making sure it's ready for the ATS system. You gave some great tips there, as well as the interview process. But if they were to only remember these 5 words, what would your final 5 words be for the audience?
I would say ATS, confidence, persistence, authenticity, and then just remember to take a breather.
Yeah, it's going to be all right. You can take that breather. I love that. Right? Don't waste your time if it's not ATS too. Let me back that up too. I love that. So how can everyone get in touch with you, Dr. Jaime? I'd love for people to know how to connect with you. And we're going to leave links to connect with them on LinkedIn as well, but would love for you to share that now.
Yeah, of course. So you can visit my website at rainbowcareercoaching.com. You can follow me in any social media with the same tag handle, or send me an email at info@rainbowcareercoaching.com.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate you gracing the stage of the 5-Minute Career Hack podcast and all that you're doing, not just for individuals in their career space, but in their life. So we really appreciate you for that. And on behalf of the audience, thanks for being here, and can't wait to connect with you in the future.
Likewise. Thank you once again.
All right. And until next time, I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.